Listen closely. I'm about to hand you 5 habits that rewired my mind, hardened my spirit, and sharpened my strategy in just 1 week. Not motivational fluff, not soft-spoken self-care wisdom. I'm talking about Machiavellian discipline, the kind that turns a man from reactive to untouchable, from easily influenced to impossible to move, from hoping to calculating. This is Machiavelli dark power. Here, we don't chase comfort, we chase leverage. If you're listening right now, comment. Power is a habit. Write it. Burn it into your mind. Because everything I'm about to say is built on that truth. Change doesn't require a miracle. It doesn't require a new identity or a perfect moment. Change requires a shift in your daily architecture, the tiny moves that stack into dominance. 1 week, 7 days. That's all it took for me to witness a version of myself that was colder, calmer, more strategic, more dangerous. And yes, dangerous. A man who masters himself becomes someone others can't predict, can't manipulate, can't destabilize. A man with control is a man others quietly fear. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be remembered. In the next 11 parts, I'm going to give you the habits that built that transformation. Habits forged from Machiavellian realism and dark psychology insight. Habits meant to sharpen your judgment, harden your emotional armor, and train your mind to operate with precision, not impulse. These habits reprogrammed how I move through life. They can do the same for you. Understand this: a king is not born. A king is engineered through discipline, clarity, and strategy. Comment one more time before we begin. I build myself. Because that sentence is the foundation of the entire transformation. Now take a breath. Straighten your spine. Silence your emotions. Sharpen your attention. What comes next is not entertainment, it's instruction. It's the blueprint for becoming the version of yourself no one can manipulate, intimidate, or derail. This is your week of transformation, your week of strategy, your week of reclaiming control. Let's begin. Habit number 1. Control your inputs. Control your fate. Your downfall didn't begin with a mistake. It began with what you allowed into your mind. Every fear, every hesitation, every moment you felt weak came from inputs you didn't control. News built to terrify you, opinions built to confuse you, people built to drain you, algorithms designed to keep you addicted. You didn't lose your power, you handed it over. Habit 1 is the weapon that stops the bleeding. Control your inputs. Control your fate. For the next 7 days, I cut off the noise. No mindless scrolling, no empty conversations, no useless content. I replaced it with strategic information, content that sharpens, not softens. When you control your inputs, you become dangerous because your mind stops being a battlefield and becomes a weapon. People talk about protecting your energy. Weak advice. The truth is Machiavellian. You protect your mind because your mind is the throne everything else kneels to. If someone can influence what enters it, they own you without lifting a finger. Listen carefully. The world wants you distracted, emotional, overwhelmed. A distracted man is predictable. An emotional man is manipulable. An overwhelmed man is controllable. When I cut the noise, something shifted. A cold clarity, the kind that feels like ice behind your eyes. Suddenly, every move became intentional, every thought became chosen, every reaction became calculated. And this is what terrifies people. A man who thinks for himself instead of feeding off the emotional scraps the world throws at him. Take this seriously. The mind is shaped by repetition. Whatever you consume repeatedly becomes your internal voice. That voice guides your decisions. Your decisions shape your life. So the question becomes, who is shaping your voice, you or the world? When you control your inputs, you reclaim ownership of your identity. You stop reacting like prey and start analyzing like a strategist. You stop chasing validation and start building leverage. This habit will feel uncomfortable at first because silence exposes truth. When the noise disappears, you hear your real thoughts. You confront your real weaknesses. You face the reality of who you've allowed yourself to become. That's why most people avoid silence, not because it's empty, but because it's honest. But if you want power, you must face this honesty with a calm, cold stare. That's the first step to becoming untouchable. And let me tell you this, when you starve your mind of chaos, you trigger a psychological transformation. Your baseline emotion becomes calm instead of panic. Your default mindset becomes analytical instead of reactive. Your inner world becomes disciplined instead of fragmented. You stop living on borrowed thoughts and start operating from personal authority. This is where dominance begins, not with strength, but with control. If you're still listening, comment, "My mind is my kingdom." Because once you internalize that, everything else starts to align. You stop bleeding attention, bleeding energy, bleeding potential. You start building a mental fortress that no one, not society, not peers, not enemies, can penetrate. Remember this, the man who controls what enters his mind controls everything that exits his life. And in the Machiavellian world, that man always wins. Habit number 2. Master the silence that terrifies weak men. Silence is the most misunderstood power in the modern world. Weak men fear it, insecure men avoid it, and undisciplined men suffocate inside it. But the man who learns to master silence becomes something else entirely. A presence that unsettles, a mind that calculates, a force that cannot be provoked or manipulated. Habit 2 is simple to say, but brutal to execute. Spend 1 hour a day in total silence. No talking, no music, no scrolling, no stimulation. Just you, your thoughts, and the parts of yourself you've been avoiding for years. This is the habit that either breaks you or rebuilds you into someone unshakable. Understand this. Most people fill their lives with noise because they're terrified of their own mind. They drown themselves in notifications, chatter, entertainment, anything that keeps them from hearing the truth. Because the truth is sharp. The truth is cold. The truth exposes every weakness they've been running from. But silence, real silence, strips away every excuse, every distraction, every illusion. It forces you to see who you really are, and that discomfort is exactly why it transforms you. When I committed to 1 hour of silence a day for a week, something inside me shifted. At first, the silence felt hostile, like a mirror held too close. My thoughts rushed at me like a storm. Anxieties, memories, regrets, unfinished ambitions, hidden fears. Silence doesn't comfort you. It confronts you. But confrontation is where dominance begins. Because you cannot control a battlefield you refuse to look at. And your first battlefield is your inner world. Most men walk through life reactive because they've never examined their own mind. They don't understand their triggers, their patterns, their motives. They get emotional without knowing why. They get angry without knowing the cause. They fail without understanding the mistake. Silence forces you into analysis, and analysis creates power. You start to see the architecture of your thoughts, the mechanics behind your emotions, the roots behind your decisions. You gain the kind of self-awareness that turns into self-mastery, the kind that makes you impossible to manipulate. When you sit in silence long enough, something remarkable happens. The chaos dissolves. The noise inside you settles like dust. A cold clarity emerges, sharp, precise, objective. You begin to separate emotion from logic, impulse from strategy, ego from truth. And this is where your transformation reveals itself. Because once you can observe your thoughts without reacting to them, you become the one thing society cannot control. A man who thinks before he moves. Silence becomes a furnace that burns away weakness. It shows you which emotions are yours and which were planted by others. It shows you which beliefs empower you and which ones limit you. It shows you the difference between what you want and what the world told you to want. Most people never get that far because the moment silence stings, they run. But if you endure that sting, it becomes a blade that carves out a new version of yourself, disciplined, calculated, untouchable. This habit also changes the way people perceive you. When a man is comfortable in silence, others feel his presence differently. You don't need to speak to dominate a room. You don't need to explain yourself to command respect. You don't need to defend yourself to prove strength. Your stillness becomes a form of psychological gravity. People feel pulled toward you, but they can't quite read you, and that unpredictability becomes power. Silent men radiate authority without effort because silence signals control, and control is the currency of influence. Most conversations become strategic instead of emotional. You listen deeper, you observe more, you respond slower, you notice details others overlook. Silence trains your mind to detect patterns, intentions, hidden motives. You become the person who sees the game while others are distracted by the noise. In the world of Machiavellian strategy, that is priceless, because the one who listens more wins more. The one who holds silence longer forces others to reveal themselves first. And the one who speaks last controls the direction of the interaction. This habit also builds inner strength at a level most people will never experience. When you sit alone with your mind, you start confronting the things that scare you, your failures, your insecurities, your doubts. But instead of letting them crush you, you dissect them, you understand them, you absorb the lesson without the shame, you grow without the guilt. After a few days of consistent silence, you feel something new rising inside you, a sense of authority over your inner world. You stop being afraid of your thoughts because you've seen them, faced them, survived them, and a man who fears nothing inside himself cannot be broken from the outside. If you're still listening, comment, "I weaponize my silence." Write it because it marks the beginning of your psychological evolution. Silence is no longer an absence. It becomes your training ground. It becomes the place where you sharpen yourself, where you rebuild your identity, where you strengthen your discipline. It becomes the ritual that separates you from the masses, the ritual that makes you colder, clearer, more strategic. Remember this: noise distracts the weak, but silence builds the strong. If you want dominance, if you want clarity, if you want psychological edge, you must conquer silence, not once, not occasionally, daily, for an hour, without negotiation. Your future self is forged in the quiet moments no one sees. Habit number 3, the strategic isolation that rebuilds power. There comes a point in every man's life where the noise of the world, the expectations of others, and the pressure of constant interaction begin to erode his identity. Not all at once, quietly, slowly. A little piece of you dissolves every time you say yes when you should say nothing. Every time you give energy to people who drain you, every time you let someone access your mind without earning the right. Habit 3 is the antidote to this loss: strategic isolation. Not loneliness, not withdrawal, not escapism. Strategic isolation is the conscious, controlled act of extracting yourself from the world so you can rebuild your power without interference. It's cold, it's surgical, and if you do it right, it will reshape you into someone unrecognizable, even to yourself. Most men fear being alone because silence exposes them. But the truth is even darker. The world benefits from you being too busy, too distracted, too drained to think. Society wants you constantly connected, constantly reacting, constantly comparing, because a tired mind is compliant. A distracted mind is predictable. A man who never isolates himself never discovers who he is beneath the noise. That's why this habit is essential. Because isolation is where you reclaim the parts of yourself the world has taken. For 1 week, I isolated myself strategically, not dramatically, not emotionally, logically. I reduced unnecessary social interactions to zero. I stopped explaining myself. I disappeared from conversations that added nothing to my growth. I didn't announce it. I didn't apologize for it. I simply withdrew with precision, like a general retreating to rearm before the next campaign. And the impact was immediate. The first thing you notice in isolation is this: your mind finally becomes yours again. When you stop hearing other people's opinions, you start hearing your own. When you stop letting others dictate your pace, your path becomes clearer. When you stop reacting to the world, you start designing it. Strategic isolation doesn't empty you, it recalibrates you. It pulls your attention inward, toward the parts of yourself you forgot existed under the weight of constant interaction. Suddenly, your thoughts stop scattering. Your emotions stop hijacking you. Your intuition strengthens like a muscle rediscovering its purpose. Isolation reveals what truly matters and what never did. People you thought you needed suddenly become irrelevant. Activities that used to feel important begin to look absurd. Time wasters, energy drainers, emotional parasites. All of them reveal their true cost when your mind is finally quiet enough to calculate it. You begin to understand the difference between someone who adds to your life and someone who merely occupies space in it. Strategic isolation isn't antisocial, it's self-respect at the highest level. Something else happens too, something colder. You start seeing relationships with brutal clarity, not emotionally, but analytically. You realize who has been taking more than giving, who has been pretending instead of supporting, who has been using your presence as a crutch without offering anything in return. When isolation removes the emotional fog, you see the true value of people. Some become priceless, most become irrelevant. And that shift in perception is one of the strongest forms of psychological liberation you will ever experience. This habit breaks your dependency on external validation. When you spend time alone, you stop craving applause, you stop seeking recognition, you stop measuring yourself by other people's standards. You begin to operate from internal authority. And that scares people, because a man who validates himself cannot be controlled. He cannot be guilt-tripped. He cannot be manipulated. His worth becomes self-generated instead of borrowed. In a world built on insecurity, that kind of self-sufficiency is almost supernatural. But let me tell you the part no one talks about. Isolation changes your aura. There's a shift in your presence after a week of silence and solitude. You walk differently, you observe differently, you speak less, but your words hit harder. People feel the difference even if they can't explain it. They sense the discipline, they sense the focus, they sense the power. Strategic isolation creates a psychological distance between you and the world, a distance that elevates you. You stop being accessible to everyone. You become rare, and in human psychology, scarcity increases value. If you're still listening right now, comment, "I refine myself in silence." That is the essence of this habit. You refine yourself away from the noise, away from the expectations, away from the draining chaos of constant interaction. You refine yourself in a space where no one's opinions interfere with your direction, where no one's emotions influence your stability, where no one's judgments dilute your identity. Strategic isolation is not withdrawal from life, it is preparation for dominance. And here's the final truth, the one that cuts the deepest. You cannot transform while being watched. Real change happens in the dark. Real growth happens in private. Real power is built in silence, not in performance. The world only sees the results. They never see the isolation it took to achieve them. They never see the nights of thinking, planning, recalibrating. They never see the inner war that reshaped your identity, and they don't need to, because the man who emerges from isolation speaks with a different tone, moves with a different intent, lives with a different backbone. Remember this: no army moves forward without withdrawing to strategize. No king holds power without retreating to think. No warrior survives battle without time alone to strengthen his mind. Strategic isolation is your war room, your sanctuary, your rebirth chamber. It is the place where weakness dies and power is reborn. Do not avoid it. Do not fear it. Embrace it, because the man who rises from isolation is not the same man who entered it. He is sharper, colder, stronger, and infinitely more dangerous. Habit number 4, the ruthless self-discipline that rewrites your destiny. There is a moment in every man's life where he realizes the harsh truth. No one is coming to save him. No mentor, no friend, no partner, no family member. Not the motivation you hope for, not the energy you wait for, not the inspiration you expect to magically arrive. The only force capable of rebuilding you is you. But most men collapse right here because they have been conditioned to obey comfort instead of command discipline. Habit 4 is the turning point, the psychological crucible, the moment you stop being a spectator in your own life and start becoming the architect of your fate. This is ruthless self-discipline. Not the Pinterest-friendly kind, not the hope you feel better kind, but the cold, bone-deep discipline that breaks weak identities and builds men who cannot be moved. In a world fueled by distraction, pleasure, and escape, discipline is rebellion. It is the one quality that separates the powerful from the powerless. And here is the truth: most people cannot swallow. Your life right now is a reflection of the discipline you refuse to enforce. Your body shows it. Your habits show it. Your results show it. Your mentality shows it. Everything you lack can be traced back to a moment where you chose comfort over conquest. But ruthless discipline flips that pattern. It forces you to do what must be done, not what feels good. It forces you to act before you feel ready. It forces you to move with purpose even when your emotions are screaming to stop. For 1 week, I imposed a strict rule. Every action had to serve my evolution. Nothing else. No wasted movements. No excuses dressed as reasons. No negotiations with weakness. If an activity didn't sharpen me, strengthen me, discipline me, or elevate me, it was eliminated. The result was brutal, cleansing, and transformative. When you cut out everything that doesn't serve your growth, you confront the version of yourself you've been hiding from, the lazy one, the fearful one, the inconsistent one. And when that version emerges, the only question left is, will you conquer him or let him rule you? Ruthless self-discipline is war, not external war, internal. A daily battle between the man you are and the man you are capable of becoming. Every time you obey discipline, you widen the distance between these two versions. Every time you obey weakness, you collapse that distance. The reason discipline feels painful at first is simple. Your identity is dissolving. The ego you built around comfort, distraction, and procrastination starts to crumble, and the real you, the one buried beneath years of avoidance, begins to surface. Discipline becomes the blade that cuts away everything excessive. Every moment wasted on meaningless routines suddenly feels expensive. Every distraction feels like theft. Every excuse feels like self-betrayal. You start seeing time differently. You feel its weight. You feel its value. You feel the responsibility of each hour in your hands. And that awareness is one of the most powerful psychological shifts a man can experience. It is the birth of urgency, not panic, but purpose, not fear, but focus. But discipline does something even deeper. It rewires your brain. When you consistently push yourself, you train your mind to associate discomfort with progress. Your dopamine shifts from stimulation to achievement. Your self-esteem rises not from empty positivity, but from evidence. You become confident because you've earned the right to be. You become resilient because you've proven you can endure. You become powerful because you've built habits that cannot be broken by fatigue, emotion, or fear. Discipline becomes your identity, not something you do, but something you are. This habit forces you to redefine your relationship with pain. Pain stops being a threat and becomes a signal, a sign you're moving in the right direction. Weak men avoid pain. Strategic men seek the pain that creates strength. Every rep, every early morning, every disciplined decision is a message to yourself. I am in control. I command myself. I decide my future. And this internal authority is the foundation of all external power. But here's the darkest truth. Discipline exposes the people around you. When you rise, others reveal themselves. Some become supportive, inspired, respectful. Most become intimidated, annoyed, resentful. Your discipline reminds them of their weakness, and instead of improving, they'll try to pull you back. This is why ruthless discipline must be paired with emotional detachment. You cannot seek approval from people who fear your growth. You cannot slow down for those committed to their own comfort. You cannot negotiate with anyone who benefits from your stagnation. Discipline is lonely. It isolates you from the masses because you no longer think like them, move like them, or aim like them. But this isolation is not punishment. It is elevation. It is a filter that removes the mediocre from your orbit. It is a test that only those worthy of your presence can pass. Discipline shapes your environment by default, attracting the ambitious and repelling the weak. And here is the part that terrifies people. Ruthless discipline makes you self-sufficient. You no longer need motivation. You no longer depend on external validation. You no longer seek emotional permission. You become internally powered, a generator of your own momentum. You wake up driven because discipline has become your normal state of being. You act without hesitation because the decision was made long before the moment arrived. You don't wait for the perfect conditions. You move, and the conditions adapt to you. Let me leave you with the truth most people never hear. Discipline is freedom disguised as suffering. Freedom from your past. Freedom from your fears. Freedom from your limitations. Freedom from the identity you outgrew. But you only earn that freedom by going through the fire. The fire: boredom, frustration, resistance, exhaustion, and temptation. And on the other side of that fire stands a man forged by his own decisions, not shaped by circumstance. Ruthless self-discipline does not make life easier. It makes you stronger. And when you become stronger, life bends around you. You stop being a victim of momentum and become the source of it. You stop chasing opportunity and start attracting it. You stop hoping for change and start engineering it. This is how destiny is rewritten. Not with dreams, but with discipline. Not with motivation, but with mastery. Not with wishing, but with work. Habit number 5. Emotional detachment, the final evolution of power. There is a form of strength that cannot be taught in school, inherited through family or borrowed from books. It is not loud, not dramatic, not attention-seeking. It is quiet, calculated, and icy in its precision. It is the strength that separates the men who are controlled from the men who control. And it is built from one source: emotional detachment, the final habit, the final weapon, the final transformation that turns a reactive human into an unshakable force. Habit 5 is not about suppressing emotion. It is not about pretending you don't care. It is about reclaiming authority over your inner world so deeply that nothing external can destabilize you. This is the habit that takes the soul out of weak men and forges the kind of psychological armor that kings, conquerors, and strategists have relied on for centuries. Most men suffer because they are emotionally entangled with everything, with people who don't respect them, with outcomes they can't control, with environments that drain them, with situations that don't deserve their energy. They attach their self-worth to attention, their peace to approval, their identity to relationships, their happiness to circumstances, and because of that attachment they move through life like puppets, strings pulled by emotion, impulse, and reaction. But emotional detachment cuts the strings. When you master this habit, you stop reacting to the world and start observing it. You stop taking things personally. You stop feeling threatened by opinions. You stop being manipulated by guilt, shame, rejection, or unpredictability. You become steady, calm in chaos, clear under pressure, unblinking in conflict. And that calmness is terrifying to those who rely on your emotional reactions to control you. For 1 week, I practiced emotional detachment ruthlessly. I refused to react immediately to anything. Not anger, not anxiety, not disappointment, not provocation. Every emotion had to pass through a filter of analysis before becoming action. If something tried to trigger me, I gave it silence instead of attention. If someone tried to pull me into drama, I stepped back instead of stepping in. If an unexpected situation occurred, I observed before responding. Within days, a profound shift happened. My emotions stopped owning me. I owned them. Emotional detachment does not numb you. It disciplines you. It teaches you to feel without being controlled by feeling. It gives you the ability to experience an emotion fully, then decide what to do with it strategically. Most people feel something and immediately react. You, after mastering this habit, feel something and immediately evaluate. That difference is the difference between being manipulated and being in command. Here is the cold truth. Emotional detachment is what gives a man psychological sovereignty. You stop being a slave to mood swings. You stop being dependent on validation. You stop being fearful of loss. You stop being distracted by pleasure. You stop being derailed by chaos. Detachment is freedom, not the absence of emotion, but the absence of emotional weakness. With emotional detachment, challenges become data instead of threats. Failure becomes feedback instead of shame. Criticism becomes information instead of injury. You no longer look at life emotionally, you look at it strategically. Every difficulty becomes a puzzle. Every conflict becomes an opportunity. Every setback becomes a stepping stone. You stop drowning in problems and start dissecting them. And that mindset alone separates you from 99% of people who crumble under pressure because they never learned how to detach. But emotional detachment also has a darker, more powerful purpose. It protects you from internal sabotage. Fear stops paralyzing you. Doubt stops whispering you out of opportunities. Anxiety stops predicting failure. Jealousy stops distracting you. Anger stops clouding judgment. Emotional detachment quiets the inner enemy, the part of you that reacts impulsively, ruins progress, destroys opportunities, and breaks your own momentum. Discipline strengthens your actions. Detachment strengthens your mind. The greatest benefit of emotional detachment is simple. You become impossible to control. People can threaten your feelings, but they cannot influence your decisions. They can criticize you, but they cannot shake you. They can leave, betray, insult, doubt, or challenge you. But nothing penetrates the psychological armor you built. You choose your response based on logic, vision, and long-term strategy, not on ego or emotion. That is the hallmark of a leader. That is the silhouette of a dangerous man. This habit also changes your presence. Emotional detachment gives you a stillness that commands attention. People know they cannot provoke you. They know their reactions won't sway you. They know you're evaluating, calculating, thinking 3 steps ahead. And that composure creates psychological authority. You no longer enter rooms looking for acceptance. Rooms adjust themselves to you. But here's the truth that will cut the deepest. Emotional detachment forces you to meet yourself without the mask of emotion. You start to see what drives you, what controls you, what scares you, what motivates you. You understand your patterns. You expose your triggers. You study your flaws. This awareness makes you more powerful than any external validation ever could. You stop saying, "I don't know why I reacted like that." You know. And because you know, you can change, improve, elevate, evolve. This habit becomes the foundation of inner strength. You no longer collapse under uncertainty, rejection, or chaos. You remain composed. You move with intention. You think with clarity. You respond with precision. Emotional detachment transforms you into a strategist in a world of reactors. And here is the final truth. The one that completes your transformation. Emotional detachment is not losing your humanity. It is gaining your dominance. It is not becoming cold for the sake of coldness. It is becoming cold enough to stay in control. Warm heart, disciplined mind, cold reactions. That is the triad of an unstoppable man. If you are still here, comment, "I move beyond emotion," because that is the evolution taking place inside you. Emotional detachment is the final habit because it ties all the others together. You controlled your inputs. Now you control how they affect you. You mastered silence. Now emotions cannot manipulate your mind. You embraced isolation. Now people cannot dilute your power. You built ruthless discipline. Now feelings cannot override commitment. This habit transforms everything. This habit turns men into machines of purpose. This habit builds empires inside the mind before they appear in the world.